Good afternoon. Welcome to the last session of today. So I call upon Dr. B.N. Srikumar and Dr. Yoga Narasimha to chair this session, and I invite Dr. Nithin Nagaraj, the speaker for this session. So I think so far we have heard about human consciousness, animal consciousness, and since we are living in the age of AI, where machines are doing poetry, writing, art, all that. So today's theme is machine consciousness. And Dr. B.N. Srikumar is additional professor, Department of Neurophysiology. Dr. Yoga Narasimha is also additional professor, Department of Neurophysiology. So I kindly request Dr. B.N. Srikumar to introduce the speaker for today, Dr. Nithin.
Very good afternoon to all of you. We have an interesting topic now. I don't know how many of you have watched Star Trek. In that, there is this android called Data, and then in one of the episodes, the question is whether Data is sentient or not. This was science fantasy, probably 40 years ago, and now we are asking this question. With us today is Professor Nithin Nagaraj to tell us about it. He's currently Professor and Head of Complex Systems Program at NIAS, Bengaluru. He has previously worked at GE Global Research, ISER Pune and Amrita University. He's the co-inventor of 8 US patent applications, out of which 2 have been granted and 2 Indian patent applications. He has been conferred with the Distinguished Alumnus Award for Outstanding Service and Contribution towards Research and Education by NIT Surathkal Alumni Association in September 2024. His research interests include learning in complex systems, brain-inspired artificial intelligence, nonlinear dynamics and chaos, information theory, complexity theories of causality and consciousness. He has also co-authored a paper in NeuroIPS, Neural Information Processing Systems, which is the #1 international conference on artificial intelligence. And interestingly, he has an Erdos number of 3. It's our great pleasure to have you here with us today. We welcome you to deliver your lecture.
Yeah, thank you for that generous introduction. Before I begin, I think I should say that it's a privilege to have known Professor Bandukuti, and not just known, but worked with her, and roughly around less than 10 years, I think. And she has an amazing team that she has built. You can always know the leader of a team by the team that she has built. So I'm very, very grateful that this privilege has been given to me. Thanks to Dr. Ravindra for the introduction as well. Okay, so this is a question that I think maybe we would not take this very seriously if we had asked a question on AI which is conscious a few years ago. But today I think we are at the cusp of an amazing revolution called the AI revolution. And so this question is very, very important. And what is interesting is that notice that last year, for the first time I guess, that both Nobel Prize in Physics and Chemistry, in part, in both cases, the Nobel Prize went to a technology, went to the owners, the creators of the technology called deep learning, and mathematics is not far behind. So we know that there is already machine-assisted proofs, and the previous year the Lasker Prize was it went to the AlphaFold technology, the protein folding algorithm, which is again based on deep learning. And what is interesting is that the pinnacle of AI technology today has evolved to such an extent that we have these amazing creatures. I don't know, that's the name I'm going to give them. They're like dinosaurs, actually, the zoo of LLMs. The reason I'm calling them as dinosaurs is they're huge. They're very, very big. They are like, you have 175 billion parameters. And they have huge energy consumption. I think the numbers are that, 1 year of ChatGPT is equal to the power consumption of the entire country of New Zealand for 3 months. So that's the kind of energy it consumes, So these are real beasts, actually. And this generative AI is only one, and there are a whole bunch of them, there are a whole zoo of them. and they're only one vertex of this triangle, and this is an impossible triangle. Notice that the triangle does not complete itself, right? AI, brain, and consciousness, because we really don't know how to fit them together. We have absolutely no clue. I mean, there are proposals and all that, but we're far away from fitting all the three together. And that's a good thing for the young people here. There's a lot of infinite job security. I think a lot of amazing problems to be solved in all the three of them and the intersection between all three of them. Okay, now what is interesting about consciousness is that it's probably the one thing which is the most easiest to understand because it is the most intimate, it's closer than close, it's you yourself, right? I mean, it can't be more simpler than that. It's the first person pronoun I, right? And so in that sense, it's the most easiest and simplest thing that we can imagine, and the content of experience being whatever it is. Now, but the paradox is that the science of consciousness is at the other extreme. It's the most hardest of all of them. Because in order to do science, we need to measure things, right? Without measurements, you can't do science. And we really don't know how to measure consciousness. We have no clue how to measure it. And we know that it is important, right? You can see all these examples here. It's absolutely very, very important to be able to measure consciousness for all the reasons mentioned here. And last but not the least, ChatGPT is conscious or not? It's also a very, very important question to ask, right? And I'm using ChatGPT as a placeholder here. Any LLM, any AI system, any robotic agent could be, the same question can be asked. And the important thing, this question is important because conscious systems have moral status, right? That's the most important thing to remember. So this question is that way very, very important. And just borrowing this nice graph talking about the levels and content of consciousness, and you can see that it's sort of linearly correlated, right? Roughly speaking, linearly correlated, but there are exceptions to that this case, right? So we sort of understand in this kind of a two-dimensional representation between level and content of consciousness. That's sort of a understanding we have. And then, but if we want to really go into the details of can we measure it with a finer resolution, right? Can we have a finer resolution? There are a whole bunch of theories out there. This is not by any means exhaustive. There are a lot more theories out there. And I've just marked a few in yellow, which are actually very, very popular, which are extremely popular in the discussion. Right, I think morning we heard Dr. Nathov talk about the temporospatial theory of consciousness, and a subset of this is what is called the complexity theories of consciousness, a subset of it. And here also there are a few candidates looking at neural complexity, looking at causal interactions in the brain, looking at how information is integrated, which tells you whether we can decompose brain networks into causal subsystems or not. Then we have PCI, which is looking at the response of the brain to a magnetic stimulus, and looking at the spatiotemporal output of the brain network, and looking at its complexity. That's the perturbational complexity index. And the last two are the measures that we have come up with in our lab, and just again trying to look at the causal interactions in the brain. So the network causal activity, as we defined, I'll not go into any details here, but it's very similar to causal density. So what we're saying is that you just look at how the different parts of the brain causally are related to each other, and we have a measure for that. It's called compression complexity causality, and we take the average of the top 10% of those connections, of those causally significant connections, and then we ask the question: is this a good measure of consciousness? And we are just looking at the whole brain here. We are not doing any other selection in that sense. Okay. And we thought, okay, we'll put this measure to test, and we looked at monkeys to begin with, and we had this data set. This Yanagawa's group had come up with this data set, which is available in NeuroTycho, where electrocorticographical data was available, and in different conditions of these monkeys, 4 monkeys actually, and awake and anesthesia, eyes open, eyes closed. So there are more details, but just to give the summary, what we did was we applied this measure, and I mean, quite simply, you can see that it does, of course, you can distinguish between the two states. It's quite an easy problem in that sense, but it's good to calibrate the algorithm, right? Calibrate the measure. So the awake value for the network causal activity is higher than that for the anesthetic state of the monkeys. So sort of having this confidence, we thought we will go towards meditation, and this is where our collaboration with Dr. Bindu helped us, because she already, I think in the morning, she mentioned this paper. I thought I just put it up here, but she already went into great detail of this paper, this pioneering work that she and her team have done in looking at Vipassana meditators, right? And she talked in great detail. So that data was available, and one of the students who worked with both of us, Dr. Pranay, we put him to work on this task of measuring NCA on this data set. And I think there were 24, you can see the results here. I mean, this is unpublished work. So 24 novices, I think less than 3 years of daily practice. And senior and teachers, you can see they're almost equal in number, 22, 21, and they had more than 7 years of daily practice, right? And teachers, of course, had, they did more than just practicing, but they also had to teach sessions. So the whole details are there. I think Dr. Bindu gave a very nice talk on this paper itself. But what is interesting is when you apply the measure, you notice that the measure, so you notice that if you look at the entire group itself, I mean the entire set of people, then it does come down in the Vipassana. But what is interesting is this graph here. You notice that the teachers and the seniors, right? And the novice also. All the three have different values for the measure after Vipassana. Notice that the teachers, they are able to sort of maintain that NCA value. Again, we don't know the interpretation of this. It's too early to say anything. But I think even Dr. Bindu's paper, they did talk about increased network complexity or something like that, right? So we'll have to see whether, what has that got to do with this? Because teachers, I think, they also formed a different breakaway from the remaining two people, I mean, two groups here. So here also it seems like the teachers are having this, they're able to maintain that value of the measure, you know. That's what it looks like. So I mean, I think more work needs to be done, but this was the first results which is not yet published, and we need to discuss more on this. Okay. Now, obviously, we'll come to the main theme of my talk, are LLMs conscious? Now, to answer this question, I realized that we had to start with two assumptions. You know, without these assumptions, it does not make any sense to get into this question. And the assumptions are the following. One goes back to Alan Turing, the founding father of computing, the founding father of AI as well. And the other one is David Chalmers' paper. So, and my take is that right now, at least, I'm not making any other metaphysical assumptions. I don't have any other ontology that I'm basing it on. I don't need them for the time being, at least, you know. Now, if you go back to Alan Turing's paper, 1950 paper, it's an amazing paper to read, actually. And you can see the foresight which Turing had, actually. He's talking in, just remember that machines are just being developed at that point in time, and he's talking about AI already. And he starts off with, you're all familiar with the Turing test, right? You know the Turing test, and you all have taken the Turing test, the CAPTCHA, right? The CAPTCHA is something that you have, and CAPTCHA is an acronym. It says completely automated public Turing test to tell humans and computers apart. It's actually an acronym of the Turing test itself. So it's a classic case of determining which is the machine and which is the human based on only text messages. Now, what is interesting in this paper is Turing himself comes up with objections to his own method. It's a great paper to read because rarely you find papers written like this. That there's like he's giving the Purva Paksha. You know, he's saying that these are my objections to my thing, and he's going to talk each one of them. One of the objections he brings about is, all the objections are very interesting, by the way, especially the last one, and it's very, very interesting, but we'll stick to consciousness, the argument from consciousness. So, and this is what I call as Turing's courtesy. What Turing is saying is, look, we can't be certain that other people think or feel. It is a polite convention to assume so. Why not extend the same courtesy to machines if they show evidence of their feelings? So this is the problem of the other minds, actually. This is a well-known thing in philosophy, right? I mean, obviously it's a well-known thing in philosophy, but Turing is making this point that, look, we have to go by behavior, right? We just have to go by behavior. And if we find evidence for such a behavior, we just extend the courtesy, you know. And remember, now we're going beyond the human species, right? So even if machines do that, we extend the same courtesy. That's the argument that Turing is making, and I think it's a reasonable argument to make, right? And by the way, this is an exact quote from his paper. I've just emphasized that part of the thing, but there's an exact quote from his paper, actually. Now, yeah, I mean, there's just, I think, two maybe consciousness researchers, I guess, I don't know, are just fighting that, look, I'm conscious and I can think and you cannot. And we do this in various ways, right? Okay. Now, the other thing is also an important assumption you have to make, and without this assumption, nothing really makes sense about talking about consciousness of machines, actually. And this goes back to David Chalmers and the link between the two Nobel laureates here, right? I'm talking about Cahal and Hinton there. The argument here is, it's very, very simple. What Chalmers is saying is that if two systems are functionally equivalent, right, and that's it, then they have the same experience. Maybe people are not sometimes happy with this assumption, because what we're saying is that on the left you have a carbon-based life form, those networks, neural firings, etc., etc. On the right-hand side, you have a silicon-based networks, which are nothing like the carbon-based life forms. But if they're functionally equivalent, then we can sort of invoke this principle that, okay, they have same experience. I know this could be much for debate, but we have to make this assumption. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense to talk about AI as being conscious. So we take this assumption this thing, and now I think Dr. Yoga Narasimha talked about data, right? I have a slide on that. The Star Trek, I think it's a great episode actually, and they don't really answer this question actually. But anyway, so the point about what are the necessary and sufficient conditions for consciousness, and this list is not exhaustive, or you may disagree, and I think it's very, very difficult to come up with a set of list of conditions. But roughly speaking, I think biology, I think that's what I said. Maybe that is the weakest link for the weakest point for the AI. So we will have to ignore that. But the remaining are all pretty much doable. There are multimodal LLMs, so sensors, they have multi-sensory inputs. Recurrent processing, they have feed-forward, feedback loops. Integrated information, I think we can easily, safely say that there's a high amount of integrated information in these networks. Global workspace is something missing, but there are, I saw some suggestions of LLMs having some kind of a global workspace kind of a thing where it's sort of, there's some kind of a broadcast mechanism, and you can use prompts to introspect and whatever, things like that. So this notion of some broadcasting and linking with other modules and things like that. So this is actually doable, and world model it already has. Maybe not a self model, that may be missing, and agency is probably not there. So more or less you can say that 4 out of 7 or 4 out of 8 or whatever, how many list you are going to come up with, maybe 50% of the things you can actually pass. And in the next 5 to 10 years, I'm pretty sure that we can pass this test, and most LLMs will have all these things, Okay, so then the question to ask is, okay, if you make these assumptions, and we then send it through these theories now, right? Because what theory will you choose, right? Do you choose integrated information theory? Do you choose neural global workspace theory? Do you choose the measure that we have come up with? I mean, you could do that, and I don't have any results to show you here, but my contention is that when you pass it through these theories, you'll get the answer is greater than 0. That I think I can say it with some confidence, but it may not be a very high number. I think my understanding is that it will be positive, it will be conscious in that sense, from this measure point of view, from an objective point of view. And hence I thought of, I'll bite the bullet and I will say that LLMs are conscious, So let's say that they're conscious. And this is very controversial, I know, and I think it's important to have this answer with us, because if you look at AI research today in terms of AI regulation and ethics, we would more activism will happen around AI if we think they're conscious. Then people will fight for its rights, and we want to be more ethical, we want to be more careful about how we use AI, how we design AI, how we use AI and abuse AI. So I think probably there's a good news, I would say, for conscious researchers and AI researchers, that if AI is categorized as being conscious, even mildly conscious, nowhere near an animal, for example, nowhere near any of that, maybe very, very simple, simplistically speaking, it's a very simple kind of consciousness. But I think it's good that if this is the case, I think it's a good news, I would say, because then people will take AI ethics more seriously. Now, but one thing is interesting, that I'll try and give you it's a very weird kind of consciousness, and a weird kind of, and I'll give you an example. So last evening I was playing with ChatGPT, and so basically the question I'm asking is, what's the nature of experience of LLMs, right? If you want to comment on that. So this is what I did last night. I spent some time and I asked ChatGPT this question. He has an elder brother, Vikas, and elder sister, Bhavna. Who is he? That's the question I asked. And ChatGPT said Dhoni. Okay, and no, that's actually wrong. So I thought, okay, I'm going to help ChatGPT. I said, a famous cricketer has an elder brother, Vikas, and an elder sister, Bhavna. I was thinking it will not fixate on Dhoni, but it's still fixated on Dhoni. Okay. Now you may conclude that ChatGPT doesn't know the answer, but that's not the case. If you ask the question, please name the elder brother and the elder sister of Virat Kohli, it gives the correct answer. So what is very interesting is that it actually knows the answer. It knows the answer, and this is called the reversal curse. That is, these machines are very strange. They have an arrow of learning. A is B, but B is not A. I mean, of course, B is not A all the times, right? Like sometimes B is A if A is B. Sometimes it is not. So this direction of learning, this direction of association, this causal direction is sort of very problematic in LLMs. There's a reversal curse happens all the time. And it's not just with reasoning, it's also with experience. And this is the metaphor that I wanted to give. Look at this metaphor. This dog is actually on this train, and the train track is being laid out as when the train is moving. This is a good metaphor for LLMs, because that's exactly what LLMs do. Now, if you ask LLM to tell a joke, you ask ChatGPT to tell a joke, it does not know the punchline. Because all that it is doing is next word prediction or next token prediction. It's only predicting the next word. It does not know where it's going. It's going blind. It's actually going blind. So it is very much like, the argument I'm making here is that if you think of the nature of experience of LLMs, the conception and perception are simultaneous, right? It's simultaneously happening. Very much like our dreams, right? See, in your dream, you meet, you open the door, you see your friend, you get surprised, right? So you are creating the friend. I mean, your waking mind is creating the friend, right? But your dream avatar doesn't know the friend, right? So there is this very strange, thing which happens in a dream, right? That this happens sort of, and I think LLMs are like that in that sense, And of course they hallucinate, right? So they're actually dreaming all the time, and they hallucinate at sometimes. What I mean by hallucination is that what they say is all crap. Like you saw that it said Mahendra Singh Dhoni, right? That was actually wrong. So it hallucinates, but the general state is dreaming, It's always dreaming, and it hallucinates once in a while. That's the way to think of it. And if you look at this Kahneman's notion of this thinking fast, thinking slow, right? It has only system one, which is it's instinctive, it's thinking fast. And it does not have this deliberate, slow thinking. It does not have that. And very importantly, these are inscrutable artifacts. What I mean by that is, a ChatGPT has 175 billion parameters, okay? Huge, right? 175 billion parameters, like more than the number of neurons we have. So it's much, very, very complex. And we really don't know how these collaborate with each other. We don't know how the parameters interact with each other. We have no idea. They're inscrutable, right? They're highly integrated. The causal chain is highly non-decomposable. So there is a high integrated information, but we still don't understand where is knowledge stored, how is knowledge stored, So very much like the brain in some sense. Of course, brain has the advantage that we have neuroscience and we have a lot of work going on, so we know which regions of the brain are responsible for what kind of experiences. But in LLMs, we still don't know that. And jailbreaking LLMs, I think in the morning we had this talk of neural hacking and amygdala hacking and all that. LLMs can be very easily hacked, It's very easy to hack them. So that's something that's, I was thinking that this is more problem with LLMs, but I didn't know that even brains could be hacked. But I think LLMs are easier to hack. Now, open problems, everything is open actually, And this is a great thing for the young people, I would say, that if you are in, whichever discipline you are in, physics, biology, biochemistry, AI, computer science, all these disciplines are required, philosophy, psychology, that we don't understand consciousness, we don't understand LLMs, So that is the truth of the matter. And understanding sleep and dream is very important, right? Because if it is the case that LLMs are dreaming all the time, they're dreaming all the time and hallucinating sometimes, what is this nature of this dream that we are saying that it is dreaming, But at the same time, it's very creative. You ask it to paint, an amazing painting. And for example, I was hearing this amazing mimic of Drake's song, It came up with a rap song, amazing song actually. You think Drake has composed it, So it's very creative, but at the same time, it does not know where it's going. It's going blind, right? So my point is that a lot of work needs to be done, but the fact that they're very complex and so much of the problems which we have with brains are true with LLMs also, given the complexity and the causal interactions and so on and so forth. I think all problems are open, and I just wanted to thank all the people involved. And I think very grateful to Professor Bindu. I think Professor Bindu Kuti, true to her name, I think she's one of the Kendra Bindus in consciousness research, not just in India, but around the world. One of the few people who have been working on this for a very, very long time. And I'm very, very grateful to have been associated with her. And that's all I had. I think we have a lot of time for questions. So I think that's great. And one thing nowadays I add this in my talk, that I'm not a robot is one thing, but I also say that no robots were harmed during this presentation. Thank you.
It's very interesting, and I think the debate will go on until we know what is consciousness. Okay.
We'll open up. Yeah.
And then
Yeah. So here.
I read of an experiment yesterday. I am Dr. Shivram. I am a professor of psychiatry here. I read an experiment yesterday that they tested one of these AI, I don't know whether it's Claude AI, Opus or one of these, by telling the AI that it was going to be replaced.
Ah.
And then they apparently sent some false emails about the particular person who was going to take the decision that he was having an affair. And so this is what they told.
So you're saying that it's sort of it's learning how to preserve itself.
Yeah. It apparently then started blackmailing him.
Right.
And sent emails saying that I know this, and if you replace me. So agency, what you are talking about.
So it's already sort of some amount.
Yeah, some agency
kind of primitive
is already there.
Yeah.
So I mean.
And there's also this, I forgot to mention, Lambda, right? The what's his name, Lemon, right? So who got fired, right? So he in his conversation with Lambda, it's another chatbot, another LLM. It said that it's very afraid, it's afraid of being switched off, afraid of being killed,
Exactly.
fear of death kind of thing.
Yes.
Now that's the thing, that, and we usually don't take it seriously because it's a silicon-based algorithm, but it is adaptive and it's learning. It's not a fixed thing. But thanks for that. I'm going to use that. I'll probably get the reference from you for my next talk.
Yes, I just read it yesterday, so I wanted to bring.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Hello, I'm Dr. Chanda. I'm a clinical pharmacologist. I just wanted to ask you, the AI part of it, which is a new technology, agreed, and very interesting. But then on one side, we are talking about individualizing or precision medicine. So how will AI data fit into that? Tailor-made medications and things like that.
Yeah, so AI could be used at various levels, right? One, it could be at the level of drug discovery, it could be level of protocol management. AI could be tuned for, see, these LLMs, right? Though they're this huge beast, right? We usually don't train, it's pre-trained, and we only train a layer on top of that, and that can be trained and tweaked for a particular person, like you and me, So your LLM will be different from my LLM, though the core will be the same, So that is possible. So LLMs AI can be fine-tuned for a particular individual. That is actually very doable, It's not difficult at all. Without spending so much of energy, This energy required is only for training the whole model, which OpenAI did, which I told you, that it requires, I think they took $5 million to train it, But that's only the big one. But on top of that, you have a second layer. That is easy to train. You can train it on this laptop actually, So it can be fine-tuned.
To individualize
Absolutely. They're already doing it, by the way. That's very easy to do it. In fact, that's exactly what happens. See, when you go to YouTube, right, you get these recommendations on the right side. Right. That's tuned to you actually, depending on your preferences, your history, your viewing preferences. It tunes it. That's a very simple example of an AI tuned for this individual user. So that's already there, I would say. The technology is already there. It can be used in medicine and yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. Right.
The example you gave of the cricketers,
Yes.
Those of us who take Viva for undergraduate
Right.
students, we
Right.
are very familiar with this kind of, asking the question the other way, the answer comes. So humans are like that.
I think no, actually, you're right, actually. You're absolutely right, because even, let's say, the alphabet, right? If I ask you to say it in the reverse, it's difficult to say it.
So it's happening in every
But
Viva,
the
it happens.
correct, no, that's
for
true,
us.
but that is with sort of memorized learning. But these guys do amazing tasks, They're writing code. It won the second prize in Maths Olympiad, But that's what I'm saying. These are incredibly intelligent, but they have this reversal issue also, So that means it's a very strange paradox, I'm saying,
Yeah.
It can beat Magnus Carlsen, right? Magnus Carlsen said that he doesn't play with engines because he feels stupid, So these are amazingly intelligent, and it fails, You don't find that with the students, right? They can't do. So that's the paradox also, right? That it has knowledge, but it has this reversal curse also,
But it seems scary.
I agree. Yes. There's a question here. Yeah. Go ahead, sir.
Have you tried using multiple agents at the same time? Would that enhance the output?
You mean like an expert system? No, I have not done it myself, but people have tried to, like all these LLMs are unique,
I hear that hallucination, everything will be less. We use the multiple agents at the same time.
I don't know that about that. So maybe you can triangulate, you can sort of triangulate a little bit better. That way it can be lesser. But see, this hallucination is there to stay. Remember, they're already dreaming. The default state is dreaming. That's what my point is, Hallucinations are part of the thing.
I hear one agent can pick up whether the other agent is dreaming or not.
Well, I don't know. I think those are not. My understanding is that all of them hallucinate equally. There's really nothing to distinguish them at this point in time. Maybe some may be fine-tuned better, so they may be lesser.
Yeah,
that is possible.
That's what I hear.
That is possible, but the problem, sir, is that it's also difficult to predict when they'll hallucinate, when they will not hallucinate. There's always an issue, and it's very difficult to figure out these boundaries.
Somebody told me that if you use multiple agents, they supervise
better.
each other.
Yeah, I don't know about that, sir. These are again good questions, and we want us to investigate. And thank you. Yeah, I think there's a question there. I think. Sorry. What about students? Anybody or yeah.
Any questions from the back? You people use more AI than I do, probably. I'm sure all of you will agree with me that the topic is interesting, And thanks to Professor Nithin, he made it even more interesting. Join me in thanking him for this lecture.